Okay, good afternoon, church family. It is a pleasure to be here with you today. And, glad that we're able to share this Father's Day together. It is always a privilege and an honor anytime the pastor asks me to speak in this capacity, and I consider something that I take very seriously. And I have given this lesson quite a bit of thought, even though I've only known about it for just over a week, but I've thought about it a lot. Because being a father is just so significant in my life, having 6 children and having made plenty of mistakes and learning a lot along the way. But I can think of no greater pleasure than being a husband and a father. So, happy Father's Day, men, to all that apply. We rejoice that you're here today and appreciate you being here. I do want to provide one caveat for today's sermon. While it is specifically directed towards the fathers out there, I assure you that its applicability is across the board for all that are present, regardless of your demographic. The lessons that we learn from Scripture today go beyond just fatherhood. And with that in mind, we'll get to it. So primarily we're going to be in chapters 2 and 3 of 1 Samuel today, as we heard from the reading. And as we look ahead, we're looking at the failed fatherhood of Eli. So not necessarily the most encouraging topic you might think, but it's important for us to learn from those that the Lord has placed in the Bible. And Eli was a high priest. He was a judge of Israel. He was the second to last judge of Israel prior to King Saul's reign. And he had 2 sons, Hophni and Phinehas. And as we heard in our reading today, they were vile, and their behavior led to judgment upon Eli's house. Correct? No, not necessarily. If you're reading the scripture, you can look back at 1 Samuel, verse 13. Again, from the reading today. Let's look at the passage. It does say judgment is coming upon Eli's house, but it is not because of his son's behavior that it's coming. It's because Eli knew, and he restrained them not. And he allowed the sons' sin in the worst ways to occur without taking the proper action against them. And that is why we're looking at Eli today. Now, mothers are awesome, but fathers, this is our day. We love our mothers, but it's really interesting because I saw this funny video about a young man. He was playing football, NFL. He was playing NFL, and his dad would get up early in the morning and take him to practice, and he'd spend hours and hours practicing with him on the field. He would go to his game, all his games. He'd be there at every single game. He would cheer him on. He made it from high school, from secondary up to uni. He was playing in the big university championship game. His team had just won, and the interviewer said, "Hey, is there anything you'd like to say?" And he said, "I love you, Mom." And no mention of Dad, right? Because Dad did all this work, but we love our moms, don't we? But our dads do put in the work, and our dads are very important. And God created man and woman, father and mother, for a reason, because it works. He didn't create mother and mother, he created father and mother. Because dads can do certain things that moms can't do, quite simply. And you say, well, what would that be? Well, I'll tell you, only a dad can demonstrate to his daughter what a husband should look like. Only a dad can offer his love to his daughter that she craves for, affection. A mom can't do that in the same way. And only a dad can show his son what his husband should look like. Being a father is an amazing privilege, and one that we should not take lightly. And every man here who's a father understands that. It's bestowed upon us by God, and we should love it and enjoy it. Because we have the responsibility and the ability to direct that young person's life. From birth to adulthood, you're teaching them lessons of life and death. You're teaching them how to behave. You're teaching them how to make wise decisions. You're teaching them likes and dislikes. You're molding their future. And what an honor that is, and what a responsibility that is. That God would allow you to be in that position to help that human being grow. Unfortunately, there are many fathers who run from that title of father. They don't want anything to do with it. They'll have the child and then they'll say, well, I'm out of here. And they're no longer in the home, and they're unwilling to be there. And there are a number of surveys and statistics that will support that not having a father in the household is extremely detrimental to the children. According to Pew Research Center, which is a very reputable organization within the United States, they say in the U.S., there has been a steady increase in fatherless homes and children without fathers. Children without fathers tend to have an increased susceptibility to a number of problems: psychological, physical, mental, criminal problems. And there's plenty of documentation to support that. Because the dads offer something very valuable. And so that's bad, right? That's bad. If you don't have a father in the home, that's bad. That's crummy. And it's very discouraging. But if you have a father in the home who's not active, that's just as bad. Because there's an expectation there that you're a father and you're going to help raise this child. But if you don't, it can be just as devastating as if you were never there. That's why the sermon includes the title of Active Fathers. That is what we need. If you are present, that's great. But you need to do more than just be present. As pastors mentioned on a number of occasions, he and I work out. And when he's on the bench press, and he's bench pressing 145 kilos, and I'm standing there as a spotter. Spotter is the guy who's making sure that the weight doesn't crush him, right? I'm standing there. And he's getting his 8th repetition of 145 kilos. And then I see it start going down. So it's starting to slowly come down. And I watch it, and now it's coming down. It's almost on his chest. And he's asking for help. He's saying, help me, need help. And now it's sitting on his chest, and now it's starting to crush him, and I'm just standing there watching. That's not the role of a spotter. A spotter has to actually do something. If you're not doing anything, there's no point in you being there. It gives him a false sensation that, hey, if this thing is too heavy for me, somebody's going to help me lift it up. But I just stand there and watch. If you're a father in the home, but you're not active, it's the same thing. I'm not there doing anything at all, and I'm not fulfilling the responsibilities that I have. So, fathers, be actively engaged in the lives of your children and not passively indifferent. Now, we learn just as much from bad examples as we do good ones, and today we're going to look at a bad example. My sons played rugby for the first time this year, my twins, and they had a boy on their team, and I said, sons, you need to watch that kid. He is a perfect example of everything not to do. And today we're going to look at Eli and say, here's an example of a man that I do not want to be like, unfortunately for him. Let's allow it to serve as a warning for us fathers. Now today is Father's Day. We had a real nice lunch earlier, and I don't want us walking out of here being discouraged. I don't want, this is a heavy message, but I want us to be encouraged. And to all you fathers out there, regardless of your past actions, regardless of your past performance, today you can change. Today can be different. You can start today to make a difference in your children's lives for the better. Or grandchildren for that matter. For you as children, you can make a difference by appreciating your fathers and telling them how much you care about them. Let's not let another day go by, fathers, without leading our children rightly. And a part of that leadership means that we model Christ's likeness. We set the example and we live by a biblical standard. As fathers, we have to be right with God first. I can't tell you how to be right with God if I myself am not right with God first. And our children will see that fake faith. You can pretend, but children are very good at snuffing out pretenders. So we need to be right with God as fathers. We also need to be right with our wives. If we're not right with our wives, our children will see that also. My dad's real great, but he doesn't treat my mom real well. You can't model Christ-likeness apart from loving your wife. And our children need to know whether our faith is genuine or not, and they will see that in the way that we live. We don't want to be a hypocrite. And not to say that we don't stumble, but we need to be genuine. We need to be genuine. And have you ever been caught in a moment, fathers, when you committed a sinful action or sinful behavior towards your children? I have, and I hate it. I hate when it happens. When I'm unkind or I get upset with one of my children and I have to apologize for it, it really bothers me. In fact, my oldest daughter, Avery, who I very rarely at all have problems with, we were just Friday night. I was trying to print something out. She was trying to print something out, and the two collided. And I said, "Why are you trying to print something out right now?" And she said, "Yeah, of course." What was she trying to print out? She was actually trying to print out maps for outreach. So that's good, Dad. And so I got upset about that because I was trying to print something out. And when I was done with that, I said, "Man, that was the wrong response." And I knocked on her door and said, "Hey, I apologize. That was wrong of me to do." And I asked her for forgiveness. But we can't expect to be perfect all the time, but we should be striving for that. We can't be the father that says, "Do as I do as I say, and not as I do." Right? If you have the father who tells his son, "Hey, son, you shouldn't be smoking cigarettes," and he's got a cigarette in his mouth and he's been smoking a pack a day, "Smoking will give you cancer, son. Don't do it." He's going to look at that and be like, "That's contrary. That doesn't make any sense." Let's not do that as fathers. Let's be genuine. And again, I'd like to be there all the time, but it's hard. It should be our goal, though. That's what it should be. To raise boys and girls into adults whose purpose is to honor the Lord. That's why we're here. And we have to do that by setting the example. There's a great verse, 1 Corinthians 11:1 from Paul, and it's a verse that I latched onto shortly after becoming a father. It says, "Be ye followers of me, even as I also am of Christ." A very short verse, but so powerful. Can you say that to your children? Follow me and I'll show you the way. It's a really bold statement. You're saying, if I watch you, I'll see Christ. Yep, that's what I'm saying. Well, that's an incredible responsibility. Yeah, it is. And you may look at Paul and say, "Hey, that's pretty bold, Paul. That's kind of proud of you to say." But for us, we need to live this out, fathers, for our children. Because we don't want them to look to somebody else. We want them to look to us. Guess what? If you choose not to be the influencer in your children's lives, there's about 1,000 influencers one click away to fulfill that role for you. Let your children observe your faith. They learn from us by watching. Have you ever had your son or daughter act in a certain way or say something? You're like, "I wonder where they picked that up." And then you ask them, they're like, "Oh, no, you said that, Dad." You know, and hopefully it's something good. Or, "You did that, Dad." Recently, Trent has, on a few occasions, thrown out, "Hey, Dad, remember 4 years ago when you said that?" I'm like, "What?" I don't think I'm so old that my memory's going yet, but I have no recollection of what he's talking about. But he remembers. And he'll say that on a few occasions, and I think, wow, not only do I have a kid who really remembers, I have to watch everything I'm saying and doing because he's watching and he's remembering. That's important. The charge to us as men, Ephesians chapter 5, verses 1 and 2, "Be ye therefore followers of God as dear children, and walk in love, as Christ has also loved us, and hath given himself for us, an offering and a sacrifice to God for a sweet smelling savor." With our children, will we be able to look back and say, "I remember how Dad used to take us to church every Sunday. And he didn't do it because he had to. He did it joyfully." because it was more important to him than sport. It was more important to him than watching sport. It was more important to him than his job. He said, we're going to be in church on Sunday because that's the most important thing. You heard that statistic that the pastor used. Dads matter when it comes to children in their faith. So let me ask you, fathers, do they see you pray? Do they see us read the Bible? And I'm not saying you have to read the Bible in the open just so your children can see it. But they should see you read it sometimes. They should know that it's important to you. Are we living out the fruit of the Spirit? Is that evident in our lives? Do they see us more interested in the things of the kingdom or the things of the world? These are the kind of questions we have to ask ourselves in order to determine, are my children observing my faith? Do they see it happening in my life? So let's look at Eli. Get back to our topic. What about Eli? You know, Eli wasn't a wicked man as far as I can tell in the Bible. It does not say, outside of the way that he dealt with his children, it does not say that he was a wicked man. He was a high priest chosen by God. And he served in that position for a long time. He was a judge of Israel. And he served in that position for 40 years. He showed kindness to Hannah. He raised up Samuel, the last judge. So we could conclude, it would appear that he set the example for his boys, that he showed them how they should be. So I guess we could say that setting the example is important, but it's not enough. We need to train our children. And I would think this is where Eli fell short, in training his children. Did Eli teach them the ways of the Lord? He raised them up to be priests, so they certainly had the knowledge. They probably knew right from wrong. But maybe he assumed, like we do sometimes, that I'm the high priest, these are my kids. By osmosis or by relation, they're going to be amazing kids. I've seen that quite a few times. There was a girl in uni that I knew. She was a strong, active Christian in secondary school, leader of an organization. She got to uni and her life changed. She was very promiscuous, a drunkard, and her lifestyle completely went another direction. She still had her faith. She still professed Christ. But I look at that sometimes and I think, what did her parents think about her? Did her parents know that? Or did they just see, oh, Amy, she's a perfect child. She's amazing. Sometimes we get lulled into the sense that our children are amazing, but we haven't done the work to train them. We have to be deeply involved in their lives. We have to ask questions. We have to be interested. Where are you spiritually? Let's not assume I know. Let me find out by asking questions. Did Eli teach them the importance of honoring the Lord? Doesn't appear so. Did he teach them to revere the position of priest? It wouldn't appear so. And did he provide the adequate supervision? It wouldn't appear so. When we train our children, we need to disciple their spirit. It's not enough for them to see us. We have to instruct them. We have to take the time to show them what it means to be a Christian. And it's not one time, it's not singular, it's ongoing. It may take many, many years. My wife tells me frequently, hey, if you think that telling them one time, or even showing them one time, they got it, you're crazy. You're going to have to show them about 35 more times before they're like, oh, I'm not supposed to do that anymore. We can't abdicate that responsibility to anybody else. That is our responsibility to disciple them. Deuteronomy 6, verses 6 to 7, many of you are familiar with that passage. And these words which I command thee this day shall be in thine heart, and thou shalt teach them diligently unto thy children, and shalt talk of them when thou sittest in thine house, and when thou walkest by the way, and when thou liest down, and when thou risest up. What does he say? All the time. Take an opportunity all the time. You never know when an opportunity will present itself for you to teach them a spiritual truth. But you're only going to know that if you're with them and spending time with them. And we can't turn that responsibility over to this Sunday school teacher. We can't turn that over to their academic teacher and expect for them to get it. That's our role, to train up our children. We need to invest in them, and we need to pour into their lives. And we shouldn't want anyone else doing that for us. Now, recently I've tried to have my boys wash the car, and they've seen me wash the car plenty of times. And so I tell them, hey, go wash the car. Because I assume, well, they know how to wash a car. And then I come outside and I look at the car, I'm like, what in the world? You didn't wash the car? Well, no, we did what you told us to. We washed the car. If I don't show them how I expect them to wash a car, they're not going to know. They may figure it out eventually, but it's much faster if I show them how to wash the car. It's much better if I show them and help them understand the Bible. For many of you that became Christians later in life, someone had to explain that to you. You didn't know. It's not inherent. Hey, where do I start in the Bible? What do I read? How do I pray? I don't even know how to pray. Sometimes we as Christian parents just think our kids inherit that. Somebody's got to teach them. We need to be there to answer questions for them. That's our responsibility. There's a Christian organization in the U.S. called Manhood Journey, and they conducted a survey of 6,000 Christian fathers that produced various data points. But the one that kind of stood out to me the most was one that said 26% say they spend intentional time with their children to help them grow in the Bible in spiritual maturity. That means almost 75% do not teach them the Bible. If not you, then who's going to fill that role? Discipleship is really important for training your child, but so is discipline. We need to discipline and correct their sinfulness because they need to know when they're going off the tracks. We don't let our children wander around physically. We don't let them figure out when it's safe to cross the street. We don't let them figure out whether things are sharp or not. We tell them. It's irresponsible for us to let our kids wander spiritually and think they're just going to figure it out on their own. We put boundaries in place for a reason. Hey, do this, don't do this. You can do this, but you can't do this. Pick whatever it is. There are boundaries there. And we enforce those boundaries because we want to take care of our children. And when you exceed those boundaries, there's discipline associated with it. So let's look again at Hophni and Phinehas. What sin did they commit where we read in verse 12, now the sons of Eli were sons of Belial. They knew not the Lord. That's really strong language. They knew not the Lord. We understand that. But sons of Belial, what does that mean? It could be interpreted as corrupt, wicked, or even worthless. Your sons are worthless. Wow. The high priest's sons are worthless. Clearly, Eli did not raise God-honoring men, and it led to problems. And he did not address those problems adequately. Now, we're not going to read it, but if you look at 1 Samuel chapter 2, verses 13 to 16, it talks about one of the egregious sins that they committed. They used their status as priests to steal what was to be intended as an offering to the Lord. And they intimidated the people. At the same time, they intimidated the people who gave them an offering. That was one area that is pointed out in the scripture. Verse 22 says, now Eli was very old and heard that all that his sons had did unto Israel, and how they lay with the woman that assembled at the door of the tabernacle of the congregation. So they use their position for fornication in a blasphemous way. Now, it's clear that they didn't make any intent of hiding their actions either. Not that that would be better, but they were so bold that they just said, who cares? Who cares if anyone knows? They did not place God first. They committed adultery. They stole. They did not honor their father and mother. And I can assure you that if you look through the Old Testament, there are men who committed far less sins who were condemned to death. 1 Samuel chapter 2, verse 17 says, "Wherefore the sin of the young men was very great before the Lord, for men abhorred the offering of the Lord." People knew this was happening. Again, they didn't try to hide it. The sons disgraced the priesthood, and they used their authority and their position out of abuse. And Eli knew it was happening. God expected no tolerance for these things, but Eli is complicit in their actions. If we look at verse 23 and pick up, he says, "And he said unto them, Why do ye such things? For I hear of your evil doings by all this people." First, we must acknowledge that Eli must have known about his son's behavior. The verse says that he heard, as if it's new news, but surely Eli knew. Either Eli knew and chose to ignore it, or Eli was completely absent and unaware. Either way, he was culpable for what occurred. And if his response is any indication of how he raised his boys, then it's no surprise to us how they turned out. Let's read how Eli deals with this sensitive situation, this situation that is abhorrent to God, that he condemns the house of Eli. This is what Eli said, "Nay, my sons," verse 24, "for it is no good report that I hear, you make the Lord's people to transgress." Verse 25, "If one man sin against another, the judge shall judge him. But if man sin against the Lord, who shall entreat for him? Notwithstanding, they hearken not unto the voice of their father, because the Lord would slay them." And we're told of no further action. That's the extent of it. That's how Eli handled the situation. And they had no concern for their father. They didn't respect their father. This chastisement, if you will, or rebuke, probably fell on deaf ears. They didn't care that they were an embarrassment to their father or the priesthood. And again, even at that, Eli knew this was wrong, just by the words we read there. But is that all you're going to do, Eli? Is that sufficient? Hophni and Phinehas were corrupt and wicked, and Eli was unwilling to hold them to account. And God was obviously expecting more action than that. What? I don't know. Probably at least removal from the priesthood. Like, hey, get your sons out of there. They're an embarrassment to us. Get them out of the priesthood. Maybe at the least. At the worst case, hey, they deserve death. You're going to have to condemn them to death. But his response was inadequate and insufficient. And remember in verse 2, or chapter 2, verse 13, he says, "And he restrained them not, and that is why his house was judged." He did not reel them back in from their wicked actions. Men, we need to discipline our children. We are directed discipline by God. That's what he expects of us. And why? Because we're not raising productive members of society. That's not who we're raising. We're not raising good kids. We're not raising hard workers. We're striving to raise godly adults, seeking the things of the Lord. And that's a far greater responsibility. And on top of that, everything in the world is fighting against you to do that. We must not allow our children to live how they desire. We set the example in how we live. We set the example and instruct them how to live. And we discipline them how to live. Proverbs 29:15, the rod and reproof gives wisdom, but a child left to himself bringeth his mother to shame. Hophni and Phinehas no doubt brought shame to their household and their ministry and their God. Now, as a complete aside, biblical discipline, there is such a thing. It's altogether different than the discipline I received when I was younger. Maybe some of you getting chased through the house with a belt or something. That's not biblical discipline, but that's a different topic. And if you want to know more about biblical discipline, talk to the father, talk to the pastor. But there are good discipline forms and bad discipline forms. But discipline is necessary. And we as a father are in charge of that. We can't abdicate that responsibility to the mother. There are times when she's certainly going to need to carry it out, but it's our job. Now, I will say, we need to be intentional because intentionality demonstrates love. This isn't going to happen by mistake. It's not going to happen by accident. It's not going to happen just because we want it to happen. Ephesians 6:4 is our charge. Any fathers, provoke not your children to wrath, but bring them up in the nurture and admonition of the Lord. God has charged us to raise them according to his desires. And this may be work and it may be hard, but it only comes by intentionality. Because all of this that we talked about so far is wrapped up in love. I do this because I love my children. And God tells us that he does that to us because he loves us. Well, how much do you love your children? Oh, of course, I love them very much. I give them everything they need, everything they want. Do you love them enough to live out the standard of genuine Christianity? Do you love them enough to teach them the standard in the Bible? Do you love them enough to uphold the standard through discipline? Because that's love. That's the best thing that you can do for them. Now, there's 3 things that I want you to be wary of, men. And I think we're all susceptible to them. We can't be lazy. Don't be a lazy father. Eli, we read that Eli was 98 when he died, so he's older, probably slowed down quite a bit, even possibly senile. And if you read the text, there's an indication there that he's overweight, very much overweight. So that probably impacted his parenting. And I think Eli was lazy, to be quite honest with you. Because sometimes we just want to relax. Just leave me alone right now. I just want to relax. I've had a hard day. Please. I love the response in the video. Even when my dad is upset from work or stressed from work, he still comes home and he has fun with us. And he loves us. That's great. Because our response sometimes is, here's an iPad. Go play a game. Leave me alone. I don't have time to discipline with him. I don't want to discipline him right now. Hey, go to your room, think about what you did, and we'll talk about it later. That's lazy parenting. We can't be lazy as fathers. It's exhausting sometimes. And you have to do it sometimes when you don't want to. But we have to do it. So don't be lazy. Don't be inconvenienced. Well, I'm right in the middle of this job and this house. I've been trying to do this for 3 weeks now. And now my son comes up and he wants to know what I'm doing. And he wants to help. Maybe later. I just want to get this done. Because you know, as soon as you say, okay, you can help, go get me this tool, it's going to be about 25 minutes before you get the right tool, or you're going to have to go get it yourself, right? But you're trying to include them, and you want them to feel like, hey, I'm really helping Dad. This is really neat. He's teaching me something I'm learning. If we never do that because it's always going to take too much time and it's always too much work, we're just doing it to be convenienced. I'm going out with the guys tonight. Yeah, but Dad, I haven't seen you much this week. Can you stay home? It may require you to sacrifice some of your own time, but it's worth it and it's important. Don't be inconvenienced. Your children are not an inconvenience. And don't be preoccupied. I've got a lot going on right now, and I just don't have time. Guess what? There will always be something going on right now. If anybody says, I have a lot going on right now, I just can't deal with it. You know what they're saying to you? Whatever topic it is that you're talking about, it's not as important as everything else in life. So just interpret it that way. So when your children come to you and say, hey, Dad, will you play a game with me? Can't right now. I got too much going on right now. And I'm guilty of that. There are times, though, then my kids come up to me and say, hey, you want to play a game? I'm like, man, I got so much to do, but okay, we'll play a game, right? And I enjoy it once we start it, right? It's not work. I have fun with them. We laugh. We have a good time. But don't be preoccupied. You see this in the military a lot. Guys who are married to their careers, all they're striving to do is get to the next rank, get to the next rank, get to the next build, next position, whatever it is. And then at the end of their time, 20 to 30 years, they retire, they have a nice little ceremony, and guess what? The military, they'll forget you next week. They already got somebody in that position that you're filling. They could not care less about you. Oh yeah, remember that guy? Yeah, he's gone. Now there's a new guy in the seat, so we only care what he thinks. Your kids don't have that. And if you wait 20 to 30 years to figure out, I want to be a part of my child's life, you missed it. You missed it. And maybe that's what happened with Eli. Maybe he got so preoccupied with his job, with his ministry, like some men do, that he forgot to focus on his children. Listen, none of us want to raise worthless men like Hophni and Phinehas. So let's take an active role in their lives and make sure that we don't. Because when you look at what happened to the legacy of Eli, it's super discouraging. We need to love our children enough to preserve the legacy. If you read further in 1 Samuel, you'll see Hophni and Phinehas go out to battle and they die. Same day, they both die. That same day, they lose the ark. The Ark of the Covenant departs from Israel. Disappear. They don't have it anymore. That same day, when Eli finds out about the ark, he dies. That same day, his daughter-in-law has a child, and she dies. The mom, not the child. And then worst of all, the lineage of the priesthood is stripped from his line and switches lines. God is part of his judgment. Eli destroyed his legacy because he was unwilling to be an active father. Galatians 6:7 says, do not be deceived, God is not mocked. For whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he also reap. So some of you may say, oh, it's too late for me. My kids are old and grown and they're out of the house. Well, you're still a dad, aren't you? You're still their father. Or maybe you're filling that grandfather role. Or maybe you're just a guy who can fill in as a father for that child, for that individual who didn't have an active father. I've heard numerous interviews from professional athletes that said, I grew up in a single-parent home, my mom raised me, but my coach was like my dad. He filled that role for me because dads are important and kids want dads. But I want to close by saying to everyone, maybe your dad was absent. Maybe you didn't have a dad in your home. Maybe your dad has since passed away. Or maybe your father is just as I described. He's part of the house, but he's kind of absent. He's not really active. Well, I want to encourage you and let you know that Christians have a Father who is in heaven. And we can claim that Father who has adopted us into his family. Romans 8:15, for ye have not received the spirit of bondage again to fear, but ye have received the spirit of adoption, whereby we cry, Abba, Father. He is our adopted Father. And he is a Father who will always be there for us and desires the very best for us. Matthew 7:11, if ye then, being evil, know how to give good gifts unto your children, how much more shall your Father, which is in heaven, give good things to them that ask him. God knows you better than you know yourself, and certainly your Father knows you. And then finally, we have a Father who loves us more than any earthly father will or can. In John 3:16, as many of us know that. So, whether you have an amazing dad on this earth, or whether you have a dad who wasn't really there for you, you can claim a Father in heaven. And if you're a Christian here today, you understand what that means. You understand the privilege of what that means, claiming the title of adopted son or daughter of God. But if not, you can know what it means to have a Father in heaven by trusting Jesus Christ to rescue you from your sinful life that you're leading. And if you want to know what it's like to have a Father with unconditional love, who loves you regardless of what you do or who you are or what you've said, I encourage you to talk to the pastor today, or maybe one of the men and women you see around the church with a name tag on, and ask them, hey, I don't know that I have a Father in heaven. Can you help me understand what that means? Let us pray. Father.